Good morning, Chinda. The rand and markets are under pressure. How have they responded, particularly the rand?
Well, this morning, the rand, earlier in the morning, it recovered slightly, but now after 8, it's gone down again to 15 rand 32. So not doing good at all. Remember yesterday, we received those shocking news on the economy unexpectedly going into recession. But also, the dollar was stronger yesterday on the back of the news from the U.S. that the GDP there had gone up to 4.2% in the second quarter. I've got with me a guest here, is an economist from ABSA. His name is Miyelani Maluleke, who's going to talk to us more about what he can expect today and going forward. Miyelani, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Demakasa.
So the rand this morning down again. What's happening with that?
So there's a couple of things that are taking place here. And I think you're absolutely right about the U.S. economy, right? I think we're seeing more signs that it's looking really strong. And I think the most important implication for the rand from that is that it's quite likely that we're going to see continued monetary policy tightening out of the U.S. And if the U.S. is increasing rates, what it ultimately means is that more money is going to flow out of emerging markets, including South Africa, back into the U.S. But outside of that, the other thing that's also been happening recently is that there've been really sort of a lot of adverse news around emerging markets, starting from Turkey and then also Argentina, and some of these concerns about emerging markets have certainly also spread to the rand as well. So we've been seeing that pushing the currency weaker for quite some time, and until of course we got our own GDP print yesterday, which was a lot worse than expected, and we also saw the rand come under a lot of pressure again, breaching that 15 rand mark to the dollar.
The fact that the rand is very liquid, and we've got very developed financial markets, doesn't help in terms of the rand, around when you look at those emerging basket of currencies, right?
Yeah, that's right. So you're absolutely right. The rand happens to be one of the most traded, currencies around the world, and I think when there is, episodes of risk off, when there's, risk that's growing up in international markets, the rand really does tend to be one of those currencies that takes the most hit. So you're absolutely right. I think it does play a really big role. But I think for me, the most important thing is that the global environment, the domestic fundamentals have also not been particularly supportive to rand strength.
The finance minister yesterday saying that we shouldn't panic. When do we panic? When everything explodes, or what's going to happen to consumers? Shouldn't consumers panic at the moment?
Well, I would never advise anybody to panic, because if we panic, then we're just going to, go into an even deeper recession. I think for me, when I actually look at, yesterday's GDP numbers, disappointing as they were, when you look at the underlying details, I think there is still some reason to be a little bit hopeful that there could be a rebound. For instance, there was private sector investment that actually picked up in the second quarter. I think it's something that's actually been overlooked by a lot of people. If we do see an acceleration in that, I think it's something that could actually support a recovery going forward.
Thank you very much, Miyelani. Not very good news in terms of the rand, especially for consumers. If a lot of us are very indebted, and this only means that we will be paying much more in terms of inflation and possibly interest rates going up. Iveka, is back to you.
Certainly not the bearer of good news this morning. Thank you very much, Demakasa Tugwana, outside the JSE there.